China hit by 4+ magnitude quakes on National Day. Elderly resident assaulted at Chengdu retirement center, ignored by authorities, witness captures video. The Awakening of 400 Million, documentary on party resignation wave hits theaters. Beijing faces bitter consequences for mass cleanup of the poor in the past. Apple's new phone dominates Chinese market, but poses a nightmare for its Chinese dream. It's all covered in today's China Truths. China hit by 4+ magnitude quakes on National Day. On October 1st, China's National Day, a series of earthquakes measuring over 4 on the Richter scale occurred across the mainland. In more detail, according to the Indian National Seismic Center, NCS, at 5:04 p.m. on October 1st, Qinghai experienced a 4.5 magnitude earthquake with a depth of 86 kilometers. The China Earthquake Network continues to report that at 7:34 p.m., a 4.4 magnitude earthquake occurred in Chengdu County, Gars Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture, Sichuan Province, with a longitude of 97.51 degrees east. During the late hours of October 1st, a series of earthquakes occurred in Chengdu County, Gars Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture, with magnitudes of 3.3, 4.2, and 4.4, and depths of 15 kilometers, 10 kilometers, and 14 kilometers, respectively. On the 2nd of October, at noon, the China Earthquake Network reported a 3.6 magnitude earthquake in Weining County, Bijie City, Guizhou Province, at coordinates 27.17 degrees north latitude and 103.94 degrees east longitude. This earthquake had a depth of 10 kilometers. Following the earthquakes, residents in Weining's Yaina town and Zhaoyang district of Zhaotong City, Yunnan Province, reported feeling the tremors. Some netizens in Beijing even claimed to have felt the earthquakes. Some said that, with such frequent earthquakes, it's definitely a concerning sign. God's decided to have earthquakes on these 2 days. It's truly a national day, and there's undoubtedly a deep significance behind it. Elderly resident assaulted at Chengdu retirement center, ignored by authorities, witness captures video. Recently, a highly disturbing incident unfolded at a nursing home in Chengdu, Sichuan Province, China, sparking outrage among the public. Neighbors witnessed an elderly man being physically assaulted and mistreated by the caregivers at the nursing facility. In particular, according to Ms. Hu, a resident of the Jiayu and Hongjun community in Chengdu's Wenjiang district, around 10 p.m. on September 27, she suddenly heard a commotion coming from the neighboring nursing home. Ms. Hu distinctly heard what sounded like physical violence, along with the cries of elderly individuals. About half an hour later, more distinct sounds of physical altercations emerged from the nursing home. Concerned about what was happening, Ms. Hu went to her window to observe and used her phone to record the events in the neighboring house. In her view, there was a woman, whom she didn't know, dragging an elderly person to a wheelchair by the window and then lifting the elderly person, using their head to strike a cabinet behind them. When Ms. Hu intervened by shouting, the woman across from her left the window and brought the elderly person who had been assaulted back inside. This was followed by more sounds of physical abuse and the cries of the elderly person. Ms. Hu even mentioned hearing what seemed to be punches to the chest area. The noise didn't subside until around 11 p.m. She admitted that her phone's camera had a low pixel count, resulting in unclear footage, but she emphasized that she did indeed see it. She also added that there had been multiple instances of women screaming from the nursing home, sometimes during the day and at other times around 2 or 3 in the morning. Property owners in the community had previously complained and reported these incidents to the police. However, the nursing home attributed the noise to dementia patients being uncontrollable. According to reports in mainland Chinese media, on the night of the incident, community property owners discussed the matter in group chats and explored ways to assist the elderly individuals who had been subjected to violence. After the incident was exposed, it triggered intense discussions. Some individuals voiced concerns, questioning, if elderly people are treated this way, what about children? In reality, there have been numerous cases of child abuse in mainland China. The overall decline in moral values within society is affecting everyone and has led to a reluctance to have children. Some individuals in these situations are either unaware or malicious. It's a situation that leaves many feeling hopeless and questioning how society has reached this point. Many no longer seem to care about their own future. Some have urged, "We will all grow old, let's take action." The Awakening of 400 Million, documentary on party resignation wave hits theaters. On September 17, the documentary film Awakening of 400 Million had its global premiere in Flushing, New York. The film chronicles the Quit the Party movement in China that emerged after a series of editorials titled 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party were published. The series of editorials was released by the Epoch Times in 2004 and sparked a significant movement for people in China to quit the Communist Party, Youth League, and Young Pioneers, also called 3 Quit. Nearly 20 years later, the Global Service Center for Quitting the Chinese Communist Party reports that the number of people who have quit the party, Youth League, and Young Pioneers has surpassed 400 million. As of the video's publication, the number has reached over 419 million. Ms. Rong, chairperson of the Global Service Center for Quitting the Chinese Communist Party, stated that since the series of editorials 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party was released in November 2004, it has used a wealth of facts to expose the evil nature of the Communist Party's rule. This series of editorials has had a significant impact among the Chinese people, awakening many of them. This led to a wave of quitting the party, with more and more people beginning to declare their withdrawal from the Communist Party, Youth League, or Young Pioneers. Perhaps some may be surprised or skeptical, but Director Li Jun spent 3 years visiting over a dozen frontline volunteers for the Quit the Party movement from Europe, Australia, the United States, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and mainland China. He interviewed numerous experts in history, scholars, seasoned media professionals, and ordinary volunteers from the Global Service Center for Quitting the Chinese Communist Party. Through the documentary Awakening of 400 Million, he unveils a deeply moving chapter in history. Despite facing numerous challenges, persecution, and even threats to their lives, the volunteers who encourage quitting the party remain steadfast, standing at various locations around the world to spread the truth. The documentary quotes experts who delve deep into the analysis of 9 commentaries, helping people gain a clearer understanding of why 9 commentaries triggered the wave of quitting the party and why Chinese people feel compelled to withdraw from the Communist Party, Youth League, and Young Pioneers organizations. 9 commentaries on the Communist Party is like 9 atomic bombs, causing shockwaves and introspection in various fields. The Quit the Party movement has become a self-aware action by the Chinese people after their awakening. At a time when internal power struggles within the Chinese Communist Party almost led to its collapse, Director Li Jun hopes that this documentary will be widely disseminated, preserving this moment in history for future generations to remember. Beijing faces bitter consequences for mass cleanup of the poor in the past. When it comes to Beijing, there's one thing that deeply concerns everyone living in the city, whether they are native Beijingers or newcomers. It's the Beijing government's relentless pursuit of reducing the city's population. To this day, it's hard to fathom what exactly motivates the Beijing government to hold on to this peculiar idea. It's important to understand that throughout China's history, starting from the unification of the empire, the capital has always been the dual center of both economic and political power, a core characteristic deeply ingrained in China's style of governance. In modern-day China, the connection between power and wealth is particularly strong. Government departments, headquarters of state-owned enterprises, and major conglomerates control a significant portion of the nation's resources, and all of these are concentrated in Beijing. Thus, Beijing not only holds immense political influence but also dominates in terms of wealth. Given this social landscape, the notion of stripping Beijing of its economic functions to create a purely political capital seems not just absurd but also leaves one wondering about the reasoning behind such a move. Based on the initial dataset regarding employment trends in Beijing, sourced from the Beijing Statistical Yearbook, a clear pattern emerges. In 2017, Beijing witnessed its highest employment population at 11.91 million. However, since that time, it has experienced a consistent decline, with the number of employed individuals decreasing to 11.32 million by 2022. For a city as prominent as Beijing, this decline in the employed population post-2017 can be primarily attributed to one key factor: government-mandated evictions. The general understanding of the origins of the event involving the clearance of the low-end population in Beijing revolves around a tragic incident that occurred on November 18, 2017. In Beijing's Daxing district, a fire broke out in an old residential building that had been subdivided and rented out. This fire resulted in the tragic loss of 19 lives and left 8 individuals injured. Following this incident, Beijing swiftly launched a special clearance operation, effectively removing all low-end tenants residing in basements and subdivided rental properties throughout the city overnight. However, in reality, Beijing had already begun its efforts to clear the low-end population much earlier, as early as 2011. In the 12th Five-Year Plan for Beijing released in 2011, it was explicitly mentioned that Beijing would guide workers in 17 low-end industries to relocate elsewhere. The first sector to undergo relocation was the manufacturing industry. In terms of data, the number of industrial workers in Beijing's enterprises peaked at 1.24 million in 2010 and has since experienced a significant decline, reaching 810,000 by 2021. This decrease can be attributed to Beijing's government efforts to clear low-end manufacturing and close down environmentally polluting companies. The fire incident in 2017 provided the Beijing municipal government with a compelling justification to comprehensively clear the low-end population from the city. Transitioning from simply clearing manufacturing workers to removing workers in the third industry, service industry, and all ordinary laborers across various sectors of society. At this juncture, a question was raised once more: what is Beijing's true intent in doing this? Is it due to Beijing's inability to sustain such a large population and numerous industries, such as its insufficient water resources? Indeed, it is widely acknowledged that Beijing grapples with water shortages. Prior to 2014, Beijing faced an annual water resource deficit exceeding 1.5 billion cubic meters. In 2014, the South-to-North Water Diversion Project was initiated, providing Beijing with approximately 1 billion cubic meters of high-quality tap water annually. Moreover, the Beijing municipal government has made substantial efforts to promote water-saving measures, including the systematic reuse of treated wastewater, referred to as reclaimed water, for purposes like garden irrigation and toilet flushing. As per the Beijing Water Authority, in 2022, Beijing's utilization of reclaimed water reached 1 billion cubic meters. Theoretically, this implies that by 2022, Beijing should no longer be confronting water shortages, when considering both the South-to-North Water Diversion Project and the utilization of reclaimed water. Under such circumstances, one might expect the Beijing municipal government to be less hostile towards so-called low-end industries and the lower-income population. However, reality deviates from this expectation. In April 2022, Beijing introduced the implementation measures for further strengthening the planning, construction, and management of the first green isolation zones. According to this plan, by 2035, all industrial parks and urban villages within Beijing's Fifth Ring Road will be expropriated and transformed into parks and green spaces, a policy that Beijing residents often refer to as comprehensive requisition and clearance. In 2022, due to the unique circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdowns, this measure was not fully enacted. Nonetheless, as of the beginning of 2023, the Beijing government has launched vigorous implementation efforts. At present, industrial parks within Beijing's Fifth Ring Road have all been cleared, with only a few urban villages yet to finalize agreements. Essentially, this signifies that, within the Fifth Ring Road of Beijing up to this point, there are scarcely any industries remaining. For the majority of small and medium-sized enterprises, they cannot afford the costs of relocating and reopening their businesses in remote areas, leading to their closures. All of these developments are bound to be reflected in Beijing's macroeconomic data for this year. First, let's examine the data concerning Beijing's large-scale tertiary industry, emphasis on the tertiary industry, encompassing commerce and services. Beijing's manufacturing sector has long ceased to exist, which is an undeniable fact. Nevertheless, this year, after Beijing initiated another large-scale clearance of industrial parks and urban villages, the tertiary industry could not avoid the consequences. During the first 7 months of this year, the total profits of Beijing's large-scale tertiary industry plummeted by 23.9%, accompanied by a 3.4% decline in the number of employees. Even in 2022, when Beijing was subjected to stringent lockdown measures, the large-scale tertiary industry in Beijing managed to achieve a profit growth of 5.8%. Presently, this significant profit decline cannot be attributed to substantial changes in Beijing's macroeconomic situation. Considering Beijing's dominant position, even in the face of a nationwide economic downturn, Beijing's economy can remain prosperous for an extended period. The current scenario can only be the result of Beijing's deliberate actions. Certainly, focusing specifically on Beijing's tertiary sector, the wholesale and retail industry saw a notable 6.2% drop in total profits during the first half of this year, coupled with a 6.5% reduction in the workforce. These figures unequivocally signal a swift contraction across the entire industry. It's crucial to scrutinize a pivotal dataset, the operational status of small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, in Beijing. In the first half of this year, SME profits in Beijing contracted by 1.7% compared to the same period in the previous year, which might appear relatively less severe. However, there was a substantial 5.3% reduction in the number of employees. What's particularly alarming is the extensive downsizing of personnel in microenterprises, which reached a staggering 28.6% in the first half of this year. This marks a significant further decline, following a 32.7% reduction in microenterprise employment in Beijing during the first half of 2022. If this trend persists, Beijing will witness the disappearance of microenterprises by next year. However, it appears that this might indeed be an intentional goal of the Beijing government. In this current scenario, the streets of Beijing have become eerily quiet, devoid of the vibrant daily life that once filled them. Street vendors selling roasted sweet potatoes, makers of fried pancakes, proprietors of small shops tucked away in alleyways, entrepreneurs running small businesses, singers in bars, and those working as extras in film and television productions have all disappeared from the daily landscape of Beijing's residents. Frankly, from start to finish, we have struggled to comprehend the origins of this fixation that the Beijing government, beginning in 2010, has exhibited in its pursuit of population reduction. Over the years, successive Beijing administrations have unwaveringly clung to this fixation, implementing it more rigorously than any other policy in any sector. The adverse effects of this situation on Beijing's economy, culture, and way of life will become evident swiftly. In reality, no city can sustain itself in the long run after the departure of its low-income workers. The most fundamental aspects of logistics, cleaning, waste management, and the supply of food and vegetables all rely on the labor of these bottom-tier workers. Entrusting all of these responsibilities to state-owned enterprises will undoubtedly lead to a significant increase in the costs required to maintain the operations of the city in Beijing. Consequently, this will substantially elevate the cost of living for the so-called affluent residents of Beijing. Alternatively, it could result in a marked decline in their overall quality of life. This is an undeniable reality that will unfold in the very near future. Apple's new phone dominates Chinese market, but poses a nightmare for its Chinese dream. The final news today is about the war over Apple's iPhone 15 in China. After its launch in the mainland, despite state media downplaying the update and describing it as lackluster, Apple's Chinese website saw a surge in traffic, even causing temporary outages on pre-order day. Recent data published on e-commerce platforms also indicates that compared to the previous generation, iPhone 15 sales have surged by a staggering 13 times. Apple's authorized stores in China have even partnered with Meituan, utilizing a vast network of 1 million delivery drivers for delivery phones, and their coverage is quite impressive. Data shows that compared to the sales of the iPhone 14 series, sales have increased significantly, with a 1,500% increase in Shenzhen, 1,200% in Guangzhou, 850% in Shanghai, 720% in Hangzhou, and 560% in Beijing. This surge remains unaffected by Beijing's previous requirement for government employees not to use Apple phones in their workplaces. However, despite the strong sales of Apple phones, the challenges the company faces in China continue to grow. There are reports that Beijing is tightening restrictions on Apple apps. According to the Wall Street Journal, Apple is in discussions with Beijing officials regarding new rules that could remove foreign apps from the Apple App Store in China. China may soon close a significant loophole in its Great Firewall that allows access to previously banned apps through the App Store. This could mean that popular social media apps like X, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and YouTube may become inaccessible on Apple devices in China, unless users employ a VPN. Operators must register with Beijing authorities by July 2024 if they wish to continue offering these restricted apps on the Apple App Store. These developments indicate that despite strong sales, Apple faces increasing challenges and threats in China, exacerbated by competition from Huawei and evolving Beijing policies. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.